Gospodine Blagojeviću, dobar dan i dobrodošli. Velika nam je čast što gostujete kod nas i što govorite za naš portal.
Hvala. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Mi smo nedavno razgovarali, imali smo veliki novogodišnji intervjuu koji smo odradili telefonskim putem i tu smo pričali o dosta stvari. Vi ste mi tada rekli da ste prošle godine u junu bili u Srbiji i da se Srbija dosta promenila. Evo sada ste ovde već 5 dana. Kako vam Srbija sada izgleda?
It's a stark difference, Serbia today from what it was the first time I came during the war in 1999. It's like I've come to a whole different world. And I think what's really impressive is the fact that not only did I come to a new and thriving Serbia, but I was able to get here in a way that was much easier today than it was back in 1999. I flew on Air Serbia, took a direct flight from Chicago right to Belgrade. Air Serbia is the only airline in the Balkans where you can get direct flights from Serbia to the United States and back. That's a big statement for the advancement of prosperity in this country. Serbia has changed so dramatically from when I was here. I marvel at the fact that the unemployment rate used to be 26% in this country, and then President Vučić came and implemented these aggressive policies to grow the economy and brought unemployment down by 8%. It's remarkable to be here in Serbia, the land my father was born and raised in, and see that this country had the second largest economic growth in all of Europe. That's a big, big thing for a country from the Balkans. Probably never happened before. And then, to me, the most important piece of information, because when I was the governor, it was very important to try to improve the life of everyday, ordinary working people. The fact that wages, real wages for working people has gone up 270% from the time when President Vučić was first elected to now. And I like to say that if that number were something that happened in America and a president could say that he did that like Vučić did here, that president would be made a king. So I'm amazed at the economic prosperity of this country. What I see throughout Belgrade as I travel around is construction and activity and people working, a lot of bustling, feels a lot like America. And I would say one last thing, I've had this unique opportunity to be here, the place my father came from, and I run. I'm, how do you say fit as a fiddle in Serbian? I think I'm that. And I went and ran 7 miles along the river, the Danube, from the hotel, the St. Regis Hotel, which is one of the best hotels in America. Here it is now in Belgrade. That's unimaginable years ago. So I left that beautiful hotel and went north, Sever, and then came south, 7-mile run along the Danube, and was able to see firsthand a lot of the activity, the development along the riverfront. And here you have a president leading an effort to build a city within the city with Belgrade waterfront, and the vision that that's about, and how perfectly that fits into the expo that's coming in 2027. Another tremendous accomplishment that Belgrade actually would win that, a World's Fair, with all the other competition in the world. So I think of your president, President Vučić, I think of the accomplishments that I just talked about, and I'm sure there's so many others. And it reminds me a lot of President Trump. The two of them are very strong political leaders, and they're very different from most of the politicians that I've known in America, and I've known them, pretty much a lot of them. I've known Barack Obama and I came up together in Chicago in 1995 was the first time I met him. We were friends and known each other for a long time, and he became a president, so I've known him. I knew Bill Clinton somewhat. I knew Biden a little bit. I knew President Bush a little bit. And I know President Trump in a very good way. And when I think about politicians, and I think about those who mostly are interested in giving fancy speeches but don't do anything, and I think about President Trump and President Vučić, two guys who are not interested in giving fancy speeches. They're interested in getting things done for people. It's all about their records of accomplishment, the thing they're doing for their countries. I think you're very lucky to have that leadership here, and I think it's very obvious how great Serbia is doing just by being here and seeing it.
Imali ste sastanak kada ste došli sa predsjednikom Vučićem, zajedno ste ručali. Kako ste zadovoljni tim sastankom?
It was really thrilling to have a chance to not just meet President Vučić, but to sit down and have lunch with him in the presidential residence, and such a beautiful building. It's in Dedinje, and what I was struck by before we sat down to have lunch was the first thing that the president did was he took me out on the balcony and we looked at the cityscape of Belgrade, and he was pointing out different things that he was able to achieve. And I was actually touched by that because I know what it's like when I was the governor of Illinois. We have a big state, fifth biggest state in America, and 13 million people there. And it's a hard business being in politics, and you get attacked all the time and you get criticized. And I'm not complaining or whining. We all know it. President Vučić knows it. Trump knows it. I know it. That's part of the job. It's an occupational hazard. What gives you strength and what gives you, it refreshes your purpose is to be able to take a deep breath and realize a lot of the good that you've done for the people. And so President Vučić took me out on the balcony and he was pointing at all these different places throughout the city that they did since he's been president, not just the waterfront, but some of the buildings and some of the neighborhoods. And he had such a specific understanding of these things. He's clearly a hands-on leader. And that reminded me of Trump, and it reminded me of two great mayors in my city, Chicago, two long-serving mayors. The first mayor, Richard J. Daley, and his son, Richard M. Daley. And the son, who I used to work for when I was a prosecutor, became the longest-serving mayor in Chicago history. And he had a great deal of pride on pointing things out in the city of Chicago that he was able to do just like his father. And they built the city up and made it a beautiful, world-class city. And that was what I thought about when President Vučić was showing me Belgrade, as he's resurrecting this city and making it world-class, so much so that the World Expo is coming here in 2 years. So that was very interesting to me. And so we sat down for lunch, and when I first met him and he greeted me down at the doorway, I was really impressed with how tall he is. I knew he was tall, but I didn't realize he was that tall. And I thought about, yes, of course he's tall, because Serbs are very tall. My American wife always teases me, how come you're the shortest? How come all these Serbs are so tall and you're so short? I'm actually not. I insist I'm 5'11". She says I'm 5'10", but the Serbs are tall, and President Vučić is very tall, so I was interested in that. But the lunch was great, and we discussed certain things that I think are important, things that I could do to be helpful to improve American-Serbian relations. And I have to say, and I've had a lot of pleškovica since I've been here, and I love pleškovica, but that pleškovica the president served was probably the best pleškovica I've ever had. And so the lunch was also enjoyable, not just the conversation.
Nakon tog ručka koji ste imali sa predsjednikom Aleksandrom Vučićem, ta druga struja u Srbiji je odmah počela da komentariše kako je to Vučić ugostio nekog ko je podržao bombardovanje, što apsolutno nije tačno, i svi smo svedoci da ste vi bili jedini kongresmen u tom periodu koji zapravo nije podržao bombardovanje. Kako odgovarate na takve kritike, pa slobodno možemo da kažemo zlonamernih ljudi?
Yes, well, that's part of the occupational hazards in politics too, that people will take your record and they'll lie about it, or they'll try to mislead the public. I was one of the only 14 members of the United States Congress on the night before the bombing who spoke in the Congress and against the bombing and warned the American people and my colleagues in the Congress that this was a provocation by the United States, and that if, in fact, we bombed and NATO bombed Serbia, that the hardship that was going to happen to the Kosovar people under the Milosevic government was very likely to happen, and that they were unleashing the furies of more war and not stopping war, and that it was wrong for a sovereign country to be bombed because other countries want to take part of their country away, and that we, the United States, were going to violate the territorial integrity of a sovereign country without United States, or I should say United Nations approval. And I think about that today, and I think about the American criticism to Russia and its invasion of Ukraine. It's the exact same thing the United States and NATO did to Serbia. So those criticisms, they're wrong and they're not true. And I did the best I could as a young member of Congress, the only Serbian American in the United States Congress. There were none in the United States Senate. There was nobody of any kind of place of influence in American politics that was Serbian except me. And I think I was able to do some good when I came to Serbia in May of 1999. The bombs were falling against the wishes of the Clinton administration, because they didn't want us to come, but Reverend Jesse Jackson and I came, and were able to negotiate with Milosevic the release of 3 American servicemen who were taken prisoner. And we knew, Reverend Jackson and I knew, that if we were able to get those soldiers back, that the political dynamic in the United States would change, and that the pressure on President Clinton to stop the bombing of Serbia would increase, and that eventually he would stop the bombing. And it happened exactly as we thought it would. So in that sense, I feel like I played a modest role, I think more than a modest role, in bringing about the ending of the bombing. I regret the whole war. I don't like the result of the war, and don't like the Democratic Party's priorities in foreign affairs relating to the Balkans. We chose the wrong side. The Democrats, not me, but the Democratic Party. We abandoned a loyal ally in 2 world wars. All of these things I spoke about, not just on the House floor, but in interviews as well. I see what's happening now to the Serbs in Kosovo. And the Serbs now are being persecuted by the government there. And here again is an example of how hypocritical sometimes our policies are and how wrong they are. I mean, Kosovo declares its own independence in February 2008. It was an illegal independence. It would be like the state of Texas saying, you know what, United States, we want to leave. In fact, we have a history of that when 11 southern states left when Abraham Lincoln was elected, just on their own, and he wouldn't let them do it. And we had a civil war where 600,000 boys, American boys, killed each other over that. So the fact that Kosovo does that, gets away with it, it's another example about how upside down our foreign policy has been with regard to the Balkans. And this is why I have so much hope for the future, this new beginning we have in America with President Trump. And his views are very different from the traditional views in foreign affairs, and I believe they're going to be very different when it comes to this area, in particular with Serbia. And I do believe that President Vučić is the sort of leader that President Trump admires. And so much of governing, I've learned, and so much of politics are personal relationships and whether leaders have a connection. Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt had a unique connection and a unique friendship, and they helped steer our 2 countries to victory in World War II. And then, our country stayed together during the Cold War. I think the possibilities of President Trump and President Vučić developing on their own, I'm hopeful, that kind of relationship is very real and possible and can only be good for America and for Serbia.